Welcome to this week's episode. Today we have a bit of a different style video for you. We sat down with a couple of friends of ours, Tim and Kate McGinnis, who are on a new Seawind 1260, and Dale, who's on the new 1600 Passagemaker with his wife Katrina, to talk about the new boat buying process. We're sharing our experience from purchase phase to build phase, where to take delivery of the boat, import process, commissioning, and warranty phase.
Buying a new boat is a big expense, and we hope that our experience may teach you something and you may avoid you some pitfalls that we have gone through.
Yep.
And we hope that listening to our friends who also have gone through the same process, albeit just with the Seawind manufacturer, can really become a resource for future boat buyers.
What we're sharing isn't rocket science, but you don't know what you don't know, and your expectations may be different from the reality of the process.
So without any further ado, let's move on to the conversation with our friends.
During the buy process, is there anything that you would recommend somebody negotiating into the contract so that when it comes time for commissioning, they're not surprised when they only get, say, a 4-hour sea trial and guide, tour through the boat systems? If they want longer, they should negotiate that kind of upfront, or anything else that maybe you think somebody would find helpful.
Well, I think that, from my side of it, during the buying phase, is that if you want something on the boat, you should ask, and it's not on your options list as an option, you should ask about it, because probably some other people have asked also, and they do it and they already have it priced out. It's just simply not on the options list. Keep up with what their changes are. Like, even though you've ordered your options, depending upon when you order it, keep up with what's going on the internet, because it keeps changes. And so keep up with what they're actually doing as you're going through the build process.
I think the way I'd answer that question, Kristen, is, and I'd be honest about this, and I suspect it's the same for a few other potential purchasers, is buying a 1600. This is the first time that I had actually bought a brand new vessel. Mm-hmm. So everything I dealt with before then was buying secondhand vessels. And what I discovered in the process is it's quite different, because I had a very established service team, very established brokers that knew the product well and were part of the development of the product. So long story short, Brent and Brett were excellent, and they stayed engaged in the whole process as we went forward. I think it's an interesting one. One thing I'd comment on is the expertise of building the boat lies in the factory. And if I look at European makes, for example, Outremer, Lagoon, Fontaine Pajot, etc., and where they're down in, I can't remember, I'll think of it soon, the sort of the main port in France where they all operate from, but they stay very much engaged with the customer in the build phase. And I think sometimes if the broker's not close to the build phase, what they're having to do is take your question, interpret it, then they have to ask the factory, which has a combination of Vietnamese and Western staff, ask them a question. Yep. They don't know in the office, so they go ask someone on the floor of the factory, and they come back. And in that chain, they always say the more links in the chain, the more sort of likelihood there is a lack of understanding, as we know this in any conversation we have. You can end up with a lack of clarity on certain things. So it has to be very carefully run and documented.
We hear these people all saying they're going to pick up their boat in Vietnam. The thing for us is that had we tried to do something like that, there were so many issues there that I could not run my boat because the engines were leaking water, salt water. I would have destroyed everything. So I would have had to sit there for months just for that, and all the other repair work as well, to take the boat out. I'd have been there for 8 months before I could have really done anything. And you can't even stay in Vietnam that long. Not mentioned, I don't think I'd want to ship all my personal belongings over there. But I think that the warranty issues that we're talking about are more significant in terms of getting fixed in that first year than to try and save some money and picking it up over in Vietnam. I don't see how you can do it personally.
We asked Shane if picking it up in Vietnam was an option for us, and he recommended against it right away. He says, guys, I don't think it's a great idea because you have to shake the boat for a year. I mean, it really was clear right up front to us that certainly.
Oh, no. Yeah, we didn't get that. I wish we would have, but we didn't, because we had considered it, but there again, Kate ran it all down for us, and we just basically didn't do it. But we also have a dog, and getting it into Vietnam was another chore. Shaking this boat down, it's going to take some time. You're going to have to be places to get it fixed. In certain cases, you'll be able, wherever you're at, you might have a Yanmar dealership and or mechanic available to you. Maybe not. You're in a catamaran. You can't just get a catamaran hauled out anywhere.
Anything with the importing process do you think is valuable that for somebody to know who's going through it the first time? It's like a huge endeavor.
It is. It's like, here's the money for the boat. Now here's the money for everybody else. Whether you like it or not, you're paying for everything up front. You're paying for your boat up front. You haven't seen it yet. You're paying for the freight up front. You have your insurance in place because they're not going to offload that boat without insurance, without the boat being insured.
Right.
Insurance is huge because they're going to want to know so many things that you're going to have to go through. What's your experience? Are you a liveaboard? Because a lot of insurance companies aren't going to cover you.
Right.
What's your name storm plan? What's the boat value? All these things are going to enter into it, but you got to have your insurance. For us, the shipping cost was much higher than what we had estimated, what they had estimated for us. And my understanding is now it's even double what we paid.
Wow.
So it's something that you really have to know and understand. And here's the problem that you need to know. You're not going to find out what that cost is for shipping until about 2 weeks before your boat is finished the build.
Right.
And so you're waiting to the last minute, and you don't negotiate the freight. See, the builder's negotiating that freight for you, doing the best they can. And they will call you and let you know that here's the quote that they have, and you have the right to either accept it or decline it. And if you decline that, that can lead into we didn't decline ours, but we have heard about people who have, and it will lead into all kind of other unforeseen costs associated with it. And since the prices have been going up since then, I don't know, declining it would really serve your purpose at this point.
It probably doesn't make a lot of sense. It's just going to be higher next time.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's what they're saying.
Right.
Here in the United States, it's 1.5% import fees of everything that you're doing. Now, remember, if you bought a dinghy, that's included and whatever. But once you do that, and you go to file that, then you have your ISF filing for $35, a bond fee for $750, an EPA filing for
1,000, 2,000, 3,000. Come on, you! 4,000, 5,000, 6,000, 7,000.
The list just goes on to the point where now all of a sudden it becomes another $2,500.
Tell you what, pull Oprah's finger. Who wants to be a millionaire? My butthole is an ATM!
Your sales tax, that's something that, everybody's going to have to evaluate what they want to do. Where are you going to pay it? Because every state is different. Property taxes, personal property taxes, state sales taxes. So there's so many things that you need to do there on your own to have it straightened out. Some of the things you can decide, well, I'm going to hire a service provider to do the documentation for our boat, or you can go online and do it yourself. For us, I think that I would actually use a service provider again. The reason is that there's a lot to this. You're going to get a builder certificate, a certificate of origin. If there's any mistakes on that, it's going to delay everything.
We have sort of a problem here. Yeah, you apparently didn't put one of the new cover sheets on your TPS reports.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry about that. I forgot.
Yeah. You see, we're putting the cover sheets on all TPS reports now before they go out. Did you see the memo about this?
Yeah.
You can't sail your boat without registration or documentation. You have to have this.
Right.
So if there's any mistakes, in our case, there were mistakes in terms of the year and an address. Now you have to go back to the builder to get it corrected. And it can take months to get all this stuff straightened out. In the meantime, you don't have a registration or a documentation.
Right.
So they can then produce a document which says that this is all in progress and it's certified, so that if you did get stopped by the Coast Guard, you can at least still continue your travels.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, I second that recommendation about having a service provider, because it was actually never discussed, I guess. It was never really agreed upon between the broker, the company handling our mortgage, and us. We thought that the broker was taking care of it, but he thought the mortgage person was taking care of it. And then in the end, nobody was
took care of it.
taking care of it. And then I went to register the boat because it was like, oh, I had registered the dinghy, and it was like, okay, I'll go and register the boat. So I went down, and during pandemic, stood in line, and they're like, you can't register the boat here. You have to register it with the Coast Guard. So it was just this comedy of errors. And that can certainly be avoided by having somebody who knows what they're doing handle all of that.
And it's not a huge expense either.
Right.
No.
So then moving on to commissioning. Did you have any kind of key takeaways there?
In the commissioning guidelines, it allows you to 2 days for the commissioning for the sea trial process. And we should have expected or insisted on taking that 2 full days, because there's so many systems on this boat. You're not asking to learn how to sail here. You're just simply saying, okay, I've got all my plotters, I've got all my electronics, I have all new battery systems, maybe it's lithium. I have all kind of things on here that I'm not used to compared to previous boats we've owned. And you should go through all those systems. It would be really nice if they had somebody that was from the, that a representative to go through and show you some of the finer details of things. But even so, spend the time and don't worry about when they tell you, oh, everything is fine. Do you really need to go and learn or do more? And the answer should be yes, because it takes a long time to go through all these systems and learn how they work.
Right.
Yep.
Correct.
And your commissioner is probably going to be recommended by your broker. But do check and make sure that what they're quoting you is lining up with what your builder is suggesting as well.
I was fortunate in the build process that I had a highly experienced guy in Brett who knew the market and took us through it. But as everything twisted and changed around us, because originally my boat was meant to go to Australia. What then happened is we went through the build process, and I have to say the factory at this point had stayed engaged, and they were speaking directly. They'd reach out. They were quick at replying on emails. And this is where the variable kicks in. COVID really started to bite. And at the same time, I think just being upfront and honest about it, Seawind had a combination of their factory being locked down. They've also had an explosion in growth and an appetite for catamarans around the world, because everyone who knows now in COVID that life is short has decided to go sailing. And the lessons can be learnt here from a new purchaser is we go from the build phase, which was pretty good, and then we get into what I would call the commissioning phase. And for those of you purchasing a Seawind, you get charged for this. They build your boat for you, but to commission it is a separate charge, and it's not a small charge. And so what then happens is, I think what broke down for me, and I've had this upfront conversation with Seawinds themselves, so this is nothing out of church, and to be fair, they've done everything they can to deal with it. But that's where it broke down slightly, because I expected, and what I've been told by Brent and Brett in Australia, is we go through a very strict process where we go through every system on the boat, every safety system on the boat, and we'd work through it methodically. If we went to a sea trial, we'd work through everything from anchoring to reefing, every point of sail that we could. And I just simply don't think they had the infrastructure in America to do that. So here's my nugget to a new buyer, probably the most valuable thing I can tell you. Get your commissioning aligned to your paperwork.
Yeah.
Make sure the commissioning takes every system in the boat and every piece of paperwork that comes with this boat. So, simple stuff like how the shower trays work, or how the loos, and what toilets do you have, or heads, let's go nautical, that you have fitted on your boat.
Yes.
Where are the instructions? Are they in a file? Have you now got your files in a neat order? And then the next question is, has every piece of kit been registered? And do you understand the warranty work? And do you understand where the supplier is in your country and where you're going to get spares from?
Right.
If you're about to go cruising, you're going to need a spares pack for some of these systems.
Yep.
So I would align your commissioning to your paperwork for every system on your boat. That would be my one massive nugget, because I sat here trawling through a great big plastic bin with paper flung into it, and then I got given a separate file from somewhere else, and still go on YouTube and find out for myself. And it hasn't come across in a structured way.
One thing during the commissioning process that was really helpful was to have our broker there. He was helping us through the entire buy and build phase. So once the boat was delivered, it was really nice to have him on site and have him there while the boat was being commissioned and also during the sea trial. If you would like your broker to be there, just be sure to discuss that with them up front so that they can make it happen. The next thing is the warranty process. Are there any? What isn't there to discuss?
This is a toughie. Let me start out with saying this much though. We bought a Seawind. I don't know. I can't say this for all other boat builders. It's the only new boat I've ever bought. In like this, and Seawind has been extremely good to make sure that every part of this boat is functioning. So yeah, we did have a laundry list of things that weren't working properly, but they have stuck with us in a number of different ways to make sure that these things are working.
Yep.
So for that reason alone, I'm really happy that we did pick a Seawind. I think one thing that people need to understand about this, and you may have heard this before, I've said it to myself, but until you actually go through this, you may not realize it. You're not buying a Toyota where you're going to have a place to repair your boat on every corner. There's not many of these boats. There's no repair facilities in every city or anything like that. So, and then the boat's assembled from all these different builders. So you have your Jabsco people, your engines, your Yanmars, and your lithium batteries from Volts, and everything is from a different manufacturer. And they really are just assembling things. And so the process becomes making sure that everybody is involved. The brokers got to be involved. Seawind has to be involved, directly. I think that's one thing that, going back to these manuals, day one, when you get this boat, the warranty process doesn't start with the fact that it's new. It starts with the fact that you have to do all the paperwork and fill out everything for the warranties to exist.
Right.
So you'll go through your manuals. It might be a piece of paper in a manual that you have to fill out and mail in. It might be, here's a link on a website to go fill out the form there and fill it out. But you're going to need your serial numbers and everything else to do this. This is a crucial part of this process, because if you have a problem, say with your Yanmar engine, that mechanic has to be certified to work on it to stay with your warranties. Like as an example, your 50-hour warranty has to have your valves adjusted and everything else by a certified person. What they're going to do is they're going to put in that serial number, and that warranty, if it doesn't exist, nothing happens. So you have to have that done right before you start doing anything. Right. To make sure that you fill out your paperwork. Extremely important.
Yes, absolutely. Yep. We spoke about that with Dale too.
Also,
yeah. It's like, it goes back to that, because for us, some of the things Seawind actually had to register the warranty. And so we weren't sure where we were supposed to be registering things or they were supposed to be registering things. So it goes back to that, expectations, and then expectations and then responsibilities, who's responsible for what. And that would just help the process so much more.
Because I think one thing is that a lot of boat buyers nowadays are first time boat buyers of new boats.
Right.
There's the used market is minimal right now. It's depleted. There's no inventory. So a lot of people go and buy a new boat for the first time, and the experience of buying a new boat is totally different from the experience of buying a used vessel. And it's certainly not like going to the dealership and buying a Toyota for sure.
Yeah.
It's essential that we follow the due process, and we have not at times, and as it costs us money,
Yeah.
because you're under the pressure of getting somewhere, going somewhere. You don't have time in the marina to wait for the right vendor to come and find you. And and as you said, in these days with COVID, with supply chain issues, it's tough to get parts. So we have actually rushed and did that and bought parts, and we ended up paying out of pocket because we didn't follow the due process with Seawind, that we're not getting reimbursed.
Now, I will say though that, those are for those types of issues where it's a system on your boat that was, say, B&G or, Yanmar or Jabsco, something like that, where it has to be done. But then there's other areas too of your boat that, like in our case, we had a motor on we have electric windows on this boat. And one of the motors wasn't working, so our electric window didn't work. In cases like that, and there's been a few of those where Seawind would just actually send us the parts, and then I would fix it myself. And they always provided, they always worked around our timeline as well. So it would be, their 12 hours difference. They would work if I needed, to have, any details explained. They would meet with me and show me what's going on. Those parts, though, that actually saved a lot of time. And if you're a handy person, I would recommend you trying to do that when possible.
Yeah.
Obviously, you can't do it if it's a Yanmar engine. You'll violate your warranties if you do the work yourself.
Right.
But in these particular cases, if you can do it. It'll save you a lot of time, because it's that at that point, they're just going to FedEx you these parts. You'll get it and you can fix it on your own time. Otherwise, you wind up, like in case of Seawind, they have a person that will come out to your boat and fix things, but you might have to wait 2 months, for that person to get to you. And it's not acceptable. Like, my water pump doesn't work. I don't have any water in my boat. It's not acceptable for 2 months.
Yeah, like, this isn't gonna work.
Yeah, this doesn't work.
Thank you so much, Tim and Kate, for joining us today. We appreciate you taking the time, and hopefully future new boat owners will find this information helpful.
We hope so. Reach out.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, reach out, because it's not a simple process, and everybody's got their own issues. Your issues weren't the same as ours, but everybody is willing to help out. We have not yet met anybody that's not willing to help out.
That's very true. In the cruising world, we really all like to help each other out.
Yep, for sure.
The advice I would give to anyone purchasing new after this is to break down this whole thing in steps. Yep. So you're very clear about what you're buying. You're very clear about the build process. And when you engage in the commissioning process, make sure that you've got that itinerary that you're signing for and paying for. Yep. Make sure it's broken down to the point that you can understand components of your vessel that are important. For example, the life raft on this boat is tucked up underneath, and it's released by 2 release jammers within one of the aft cockpits. Now, if you're not familiar with this boat, if you haven't built that, you wouldn't have a clue where it was. I went searching for it everywhere.
Exactly.
And how does it work?
Right.
Have you actually lowered it? But it's just having that framework. This is what happens in the purchase phase, contracting, setting out the spec of the boat. This is what happens in the build phase. And this is what happens in the commissioning phase. That's 3 across there. And then we get down to ownership. This is what the broker does. This is what the factory does. And this is what the owner does. You could almost have that fantastic. If people just draw that out on one simple piece of paper, we'd all know where we are.
Right. And even extending that to the warranty phase and process, right? So who's your point of communication for warranty items? Is it the factory, or then will it be the actual vendor? So is it Yamaha, or is it Fisher Panda, right? Or B&G, or is it the factory who would be the go-between between those people? If you understand right away that, if you're having an issue with your generator, then you need to reach out to the Fisher Panda person and submit a claim, and then submit with them to get reimbursed, rather than thinking that, the boat builder is going to be my, because they installed the equipment, they will be the person to, reach out to Fisher Panda and they will be the person to reimburse you. It is not always the case. So just kind of understanding the process.
I think what you just said there again is another great nugget, Krista, because what should happen is in the actual commissioning process is it doesn't matter whether you're in America, in Australia, whether you accept delivery of the boat in Vietnam, along with every system, the manufacturer, for example, let's take the generator for argument's sake, Fisher Panda, they ultimately hold the warranty. The factory doesn't warrant that unit, it just fits it. But what the factory should do, because they've purchased it, is they should give you the point of contact in that country that you will reach out to if that item goes wrong. So if you're based, for example, in Fort Lauderdale, there will be a Fort Lauderdale supplier, and I think it's the factory's responsibility to say, we purchased it, and in part of your commissioning process, these are the people that you go to should a single item of this equipment go wrong. And that should be part of the commissioning process. And the other thing with boats is they just don't stay in one place. So if you've bought it to stay in one place, then this is really the wrong boat for it. You've moved, so you can move, like we moved up from Florida to Charleston, and yet we needed work doing on the Fisher Panda. There's no real warranty trail, and they go, well, where did you buy this? And say, well, it was fitted in Vietnam. At that point, they're throwing their hands up, and then the guy fitting or fixing the problem is not a Fisher Panda guy. So the whole thing falls down quite quickly. So what you really need to do is just have one point of contact on the eastern coast of America and say, this is the problem. We think it's a warranty issue, and you've got someone to talk to. And because you're always going to have a third party supplier, unless, and many boaters are, and I know you, Fabio, are becoming a bit of god at fixing everything yourself. But it's a lot of us can if you're going to fit a new alternator, that's not difficult, is it? It's 3 bolts and a belt drive, to get a trained monkey to do that. But and we can do that. But it's who are you going to? Coming back to your point, Kristen, I think it's just really simple. If you have a spectral water maker, who's the spectral water maker supplier in the area that this boat is being commissioned, and who do you go to for spares packs? That's the other important thing. And in fairness, it's just a start point. And I would put this under the owner's ownership, frankly, because once you've got that address, you need to reach out to them and say, I've just bought this boat. Here it is. I'm letting you know we're here. Do you have everything? That's not the factory to do. And it would be unreasonable for them to expect that to happen whilst they're trying to build boats.
Of course.
There's another disconnect, for example, is the urgency that we don't even think about most of the times, because parts will break. And going through the warranty process, it's really takes a long time, and especially now with the supply chain issues and COVID, as you pointed out earlier. So, for example, we broke our wind sensor on top of the mast, and to go through the warranty process was take forever. So we end up buying a new one and pay out of pocket, and that was an out-of-pocket expense. Not even though it's a warranted item, we end up paying for it. Similarly, we broke our autopilot went sour, as probably
the ram was leaking.
The ram was leaking, and B&G recognized that there was a problem with the ram, but it took 2.5 months to get the repair. So there are these timing issues that the warranty doesn't encompass. In your life, because like you and I, we basically want to sail around. We don't want to be fixing parts all the time.
No, I love what you say there, Fabio. And here's the honesty of this. This is a really good conversation to have, because the honesty is, to anyone buying a new boat, that once you actually set sail, most of the stuff you're going to deal with yourself and pay for yourself. Because if you'd like to go through the warranty process, well, if you've parked your boat up and you're not moving anywhere and you've got a few months to kill, then go ahead. They're good on you. And, right behind you on that one. But the truth is, and I ended up with 3 what you could technically go back to the factory and say, okay, these are 3 small things that should be sorted out. And the bottom line is, I just did them myself, got them done, because I'm sailing, I'm living aboard, I'm cruising, and I don't have time to wait. Your point's so true. We had a brand new Masterbolt alternator. One of the pulleys on it came out of alignment. I literally just ripped the thing off, got it fixed, and put it back on. I had it done in 24 hours because I needed to get going.
Yeah.
So I do think for those of you purchasing, listening to this conversation, the reality check is you can have all of these contacts, you can understand the spares, you can start the journey. There might be some future compensation if you have a good relationship with the person that's providing that warranty. But in many cases, you just need to get the part on board and get it fixed fast. Because that's what we do. There's just the harsh reality of the thing. And the other thing is, coming back to our point, Kristen, about ownership, that warranty journey, that warranty battle, it's going to sit with you as the owner.
Yep.
It's not going to sit with anyone else. Because actually, I think, given the circumstances, the fact that I'm sat here now in the Bahamas in an amazing boat, which is well sorted, and I've sailed in all weathers, it's been a great outcome. I think this is purely about sharing the learnings for those following in our footsteps.
Yes, that's
And
exactly what it is.
Yeah, and we've both been pioneering, because when they bring a new boat into a new market, of course no one's going to know it. We kind of get that. And in a perfect world, if anyone had been able to travel, you'd have had someone from Seawinds over in America who knew the boat backwards on board with us. And it's just we just took our boats in crazy times.
Exactly right. Yeah.
And I think everything we've spoken about so far has just been, if we could just enhance the process from purchase to build to commissioning and break down those areas of responsibility we spoke about, those following us will have just a much sort of clearer journey through this path. And it was a learning curve for both of us, I suspect, because we just hadn't done it before.
Right.
So if this does anything to enhance the enjoyment and lessen the pain, then I'd call that a result.
Yes,
Exactly. This has been
so true,
great.
isn't it? Is that sure? You've got
Yeah, this has been great.
pretty
Thank
much
you
what you
so
need,
much.
Kristen.
Yeah.
Oh, come on, it's a pleasure.
Well, have fun and good luck.
Honestly, thank you. All right, you two take care. It's lovely to see you. Yeah, all the best. Okay, will do. Bye.
Okay.
Thanks for joining us for this conversation.
We hope you find this video informative.
If you have any questions, please reach out, leave us a comment down below. We are happy to help. Be sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. It really does make a difference. We'll see you guys next time.